Thank you, Liz, and the whole foundation for putting this on. I know it takes a lot to put this on, so well, Nicole and I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of share our knowledge and passion with the mission to help enhance what we're talking about when we're talking about exercise. It's very key here that we can use exercise as a complementary approach to reducing or slowing down adverse health outcomes. So we were just going to jump right into it, and then from there, how it's going to go is I'll start the first half to talk about the science, and then Nicole will. I think is the most important part is the application of keeping consistent and adherence, because that's big in any community, is being able to keep doing it consistently. So she has some great tools which I've used within our clinic to help our youth and adults with CF and other various pulmonary diseases kind of keep their adherence and keep their consistency going. And simplicity is key with this, and she makes it easy for us. So I think her stuff's going to be the most powerful out of this. So everyone has to stay tuned for it, because I got blown away by it. So we're just going to hop right in and then we'll get going. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to dive right into it. Okay. So one thing too is if you do have questions, we're going to have a question and answer at the end. So you can throw them in the chat. We'll be moderating those, but if we don't get to those, don't hesitate just to wait till the end. If it is a little bit more specific for your child, whoever it might, your kind of connection with, we'll do our best to answer. But one thing we always talk about with everyone is take everything with a grain of salt. Everyone is different. Context matters. Environment matters. There's a lot of different variables and factors. So we're just trying to lay the framework and foundation so you can use these things for future training and stuff like that. So, and I'm always happy to set up a call as well, or an email chain if you have more specific questions. So we're here to help. So do not hesitate. And once again, if it goes past time, we can make sure to get some answers to the questions that you have here. So with that being said, keep youth moving. And when we're talking about youth, we're talking any young kids from 6 years old, 19, 20. We're talking about a really range of pediatrics and stuff like that. So, and it's going to vary. But once again, thank you to the CF NorCal Foundations and all the chapters that helped with this, because I know it takes a lot of energy and time to put these on, and we really, really appreciate it. I feel our part's the easy part of just looking at the research and helping apply it. So thank you guys for doing that. And our mission, and once again, we probably talked about this. This was at the recent NorCal chapter's Great Strides with our little beautiful dachshund down there named Potter. But our mission is to create and advance complementary approaches to health in CF, more specifically CF. We really believe that there's tools out there. There's various protocols that we can use outside of the clinic that can be powerful to, once again, not only keep consistency, but see slow gains over the course of years and stuff like that. And one big thing that I was taught from mentors of mine was, it's like we want to keep it simple, but the thing is little and often over the long haul. And that's really our approach, is to help slowly add to what's out there. So our objectives is to look at the literature a little bit. I'm not going to bore you as much, but I do want to set a foundation of why we're taking these approaches, training recommendations, and then tools to keep success. Now, what does science report? So one big thing that I focus on is musculoskeletal system in CF. There's been a lot of research in the past about the aerobic system, stuff like that, but sometimes we forget about how much our musculoskeletal system helps with lung function. And so grip strength, just gripping something, has a strong association with lung function in adolescents and adults. And some people would ask, like, well, why gripping something? Because what we have to understand is our whole system is one unit. Now we have just this interplay of multiple muscles that are placed between connective tissue that allows us to move. So when I move my right arm, my torso is going to move a little bit. And depending on the postures, muscles are affected in different ways. So as people get stronger, it's going to be easier for individuals to move, which makes it easier for the lungs and the heart to function in the way they need to. And they've seen great association with muscular strength and lung function. We've seen FEV1% predicted, once again, significant association across age and healthcare measures. And that's nothing new. However, if we think about it, we tie the first one on top, it's like, well, if improving strength helps lung function and FEV1 predicted is significant association, then there right off the bat is an indirect way to help target functional capacity in youth with CF from a starting point. So if we get them starting earlier, there's a potential for better outcomes later. And this is very key to this talk, is getting youth moving earlier and doing various elements, which we will discuss throughout this. And one big thing is youth can do resistance training. And I'll talk about this a little bit, but there was a study done where they improved 30 to 50% of their strength, 7 to 13-year-olds, in an 8 to 12 week program, strength training program. And there's myths about it, but we'll have some data to kind of back that resistance training at various levels is okay for youth. Once again, it's dependent on the individual, depends on the tools and how it's programmed, but it's something that we shouldn't necessarily disregard because it can be a powerful complementary tool. And then our last little bit on the literature is lean body mass, muscle mass, anaerobic and aerobic capacity in CF all correlate together. So when you build, or when youth build more muscular strength, or they have more lean mass on them, it helps improve anaerobic or aerobic capacity, which means it allows our systems or organs within to be able to improve its capacity. Once again, going back to it, is our muscles connect to our bones, which create our ability to move our joints. Now, if there's a level of strength, it's going to make it easier for those joints to move. And when it's easier to move, our lungs and our heart don't have to work as hard. But not only that, it sets it up to be able to optimize. So if someone has a little bit more strength, they may be able to walk a little bit further. Walking a little bit further is going to help with aerobic capacity, and it's just a trickle down effect. And this is a big thing why I focus on musculoskeletal systems in CF, is because we're forgetting that it's a part of everything that we're trying to improve on in CF. Another big thing is bone mineral density. It reduced a little bit as in the longitudinal data across all boards, healthy age-related individuals and individuals with CF. Getting out and exercising can help improve bone mineral density, but it also helps with mental health beyond physical health, and just multitasking and planning, things of everyday life. So sometimes we focus on the physical, but just as important is the mental aspect of it, and exercise helps both capacities. It's one of those bang for your buck tools that we believe is underutilized throughout every population. And exercise can be a form of airway clearance. So, oftentimes if there needs to be airway clearance done multiple times a day, sitting there with a vest may not always be the best thing in a sense of just mental capacity. Getting out and maybe running around kicking a soccer ball could be a component that can be helpful. And that could be interchanged, not saying one's better than the other, but there's always good to have various outlets to be able to do airway clearance. So if there's a lack of drive to do it, maybe making it fun through exercise. So once again, reaching the goals in a different manner. And the reason why this all matters is because everything is interconnected. Our heart, our brain, all the organs as a unit. And we know within CF, it's a multi-organ disease. So if we're able to use a tool that can target various organ systems, we're really maximizing and optimizing what we're trying to do here. So the various categories of exercise when we're talking about what should youth do in a sense. Well, the big key is trying to keep things balanced. Now, once again, there is that level of we want them just to get out and do anything. That's fine. But as kids grow and they start to get stronger, taller, and they start to kind of go on their own, we want to make sure that they're introduced to multiple levels or categories within exercise, because one is not better than the other. All of them in a balanced system works the best. So a level of endurance, a level of strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination. And everyone's going to be different. So some don't need as much flexibility as they need endurance. Others need a little bit more strength or balance and coordination. I work with some that our flexibility training is very minute just because they're really, really flexible, which means we're going to emphasize a little bit more strength to be able to keep that stability and reduce the risk of injury. So it's very contextual based when we're talking about exercise. And that's another thing that's cool about it is we can kind of gear it towards what they like. So it allows them the opportunity to do something a little bit more towards what they like, so you can keep them physically active. So I really like this chart from Kreimer, who talks about if we look at just what is better. And like I said, everything tends to be as a unit the best, but people wanted to actually see what is actually better for our youth. And when we're talking about different categories, now what's interesting about this is strength, endurance, or nothing at all. And they looked at three different groups with a third or a second control group in a different location. But what's interesting about this is if you look at, AT is endurance based, and then ST is strength based or aerobic, and then strength based, and then the top two are controls. But what you'll see is over time, if we look at FBC, or even if we look below at VO2 peak, stuff that really works with lung function or components, is there is a parallel system here where they are very similar in what their approach is when we're talking about improving lung function. So they put an endurance-based group and a strength-based group against, and they wanted to see over the course of 24 months, what would help aerobic capacity more, or what would help improve FVCs more. And they come to find out they were similar, which is something powerful to think. Because once again, we tend to think, okay, I need to improve lung function, so I should go out and walk, run, do something more endurance-based. Well, actually, a combination of potentially both could be better, but doing a level of strength is then going to help with the endurance. So just thinking outside the box of not just doing one category with an exercise, it's powerful to do multiple. Now, with the musculoskeletal system, one big myth that we talked about with our youth, and this came from the American Academy of Pediatrics within a journal. It says, strength training has not been shown to have a negative effect on physical growth plate, health, linear growth, or physical health, linear growth, and cardiovascular health in youth. That has always been a big question asked within the clinic is, well, my son or daughter is too young to do any resistance training. And I'm like, it's just a level that we've come to find that it's not necessarily true. Because if we think about it, they're doing some form of resistance loading every day of their life. So for instance, mechanical loading, when a kid walks, runs, jumps, picks things up, there is a level of resistance. Now, it doesn't look like a resistance band, it doesn't look like a dumbbell, but when they're holding their backpack or stuff like that, that still applies a load to the body. Now, if you have a kid go run to the mailbox and back, well, that's 3 to 4 times in mechanical loading of their body weight. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because there's good things that come from mechanical loading, like building bone mineral density. However, we have to understand that a resistance band or a dumbbell is not necessarily going to be harmful for a youth, as long as they're properly supervised and coached. And that's the key thing too, is in a properly supervised or coached position, kids can benefit at a younger age. And you can at the easiest or simplistic level is body weight, doing air squats, planks, crawling around on the ground, stuff like that are levels of resistance training that can help. And it's to show that they're always doing this in a sense. We just don't see it because they're not in a gym or at home lifting a weight. And here was a study done by Bath on, just to give you an idea of mechanical loading on just bone growth from pre-puberty to post, is they looked at youth girls, tennis players, and they saw their humerus, which is the bone in the middle there, would start to, the black areas growth from mechanical loading. So when they were hitting tennis balls, that growth occurred because of the forces being applied when they would hit the tennis ball in various positions. So going back to it, they're already working on mechanical loads through some form of resistance training. You just may not realize it because it could be a sport, or they could be at a jungle gym climbing around, or they could be, digging and something like that. So something to consider when we're talking about introducing some level of resistance training, or even if you talk about aerobic training, because if they're walking, running, stuff like that, that's also going to help with bone mineral growth here. So how much? Well, it all depends, and everyone is different, and there's a lot of different factors, but from a general basis, if you walk away today just to have a general idea of where you could start, and you can start lower here, but just the general idea is the American College of Sports Medicine recommends around, for physical activity, about 5 days a week of moderate to vigorous exercise for about 60 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go Monday through Friday, 60 minutes. That can be broken up and accumulated over the course of a day. But the big picture here is get kids out moving, or the teenagers, get them into the gyms or sports, whatever it might be, consistently throughout the week, even if it's for 10 minutes. Because once again, 10 minutes today is going to accumulate over time for future. It's what we learn early about saving our money. Save $1 today, save $1 tomorrow, and eventually 10 years from now, that's going to grow. This is the same exact thing when we're talking about getting our youth starting physical activity early. If you start earlier, kids and youth have differences in adverse outcomes later in life, because not only are they getting to work all the multiple organs that need to be worked as we function, but also they're creating lifestyle habits and behaviors so they keep consistently doing it. So it's not just about that physical component. Another big part is that mental component, and also creating a structured system, which Nicole is going to talk about a little bit more, which is probably the most powerful thing when we're talking about exercise overall. So training recommendations for kind of youth, once again, going to a park, climbing the monkey bars, getting them in youth sports if they don't like group youth sports, single-based sports, having them do planks at home with a family member, something that jumping on trampolines, rolling around in the grass, get outside and move. Obviously, if it's extremely hot, where we're at right now, it's 100 degrees. That's not a big recommendation to be out. However, there's stuff you could do around the house that could be easily, even for 5 minutes. Let's have a plank competition. Who can hold it the longest? So it's a game, but at the same time, they get a little bit of core strength in there. Simplicity is key here, and to not overthink it, because then eventually it just never happens. And you can always give the youth a role. It's like picking things up, moving. That's an external load placed upon the body, which means the muscles have to activate, and is lung function. Everything is playing a role. Some are minor, some are major, but once again, these type of things not only help create habits so they can help you around the house, but it also starts to get them stronger, building grip strength, easily carrying some groceries. A kid's going to start to build his grip strength. And like I just discussed before, stronger grip associates with better FE1 percentage outcomes. So very simple thing right there. Now, when we're talking as the youth get older and we're going into teenagers, starting to introduce, some form of resistance training, whether it's resistance bands once they've passed body weight, or maybe they stay body weight 13 to 14 years old, start to introduce, dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, something in the gym. We are big advocates if you have the capacity to have teenagers have at least a session with a strength and conditioning coach, a personal trainer, an exercise physiologist, someone within that realm, so they get an idea of good form. Because once again, that is another kind of barrier. Sometimes parents are hindered when they're, because they think exercise or lifting weights is going to hurt their child. And if you lift anything with bad form, it doesn't matter if you're 20 years old, 8 years old, or 50 years old. Eventually, if you keep doing it over time with bad form, you're going to get hurt. Youth are resilient compared to someone that's 30 years old. However, we want to teach early good movement patterns, so when they go off and do things on their own, they're set up for success. So lifting weights 1 to 2 days a week starting at 13 years old is not a bad thing to introduce with the youth, whether that's at home or at the local gym. But always recommend getting a coach first to help with that. So here is just a basic broad outline of what a 60-minute workout would be, is if your son or daughter was looking to build some strength and endurance. Because that's another thing, is how many days a week can you realistically work out? And oftentimes, like, oh, we'll do it 4 days a week, and it turns into 2. And then sometimes it's once a week because of you go on vacation, whatever it might be. So just a very basic level of how you can go from anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes but having multiple components within it. So what I mean by that is you want a warm up 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be necessarily longer than that. If you have more time, great. 5 to 10 minutes just to warm the body up, warm the muscles up, get the body moving in various patterns. I always recommend that your warm up should kind of be dictated about what your workout's going to be. So say you're going to focus more legs based, then maybe you're going to warm the legs up a little bit more than you're going to warm the upper body up. So start to have a plan of what that might be, or for the youth, in a sense of what we're doing. And then strength. So with our teenagers and stuff like that, they could be anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. Now, when we're talking about shorter in strength, where it's only 20 minutes, there may be less exercises or may be condensed, but you can still get a great workout in 20 minutes in the strength category. And honestly, you could get great strength work done in 15 minutes. Time doesn't necessarily dictate what the outcomes are going to be. You're just going to have to be a little bit more efficient, and then you may have to program slightly differently throughout the week. So it's something people will hinder. It's like, well, I don't have enough time, and with teenagers, with school, sports, whatever it might be, other responsibilities, sometimes time is a factor, but 15 minutes at home doing push-ups, planks, and doing air squats can be powerful if we think about over the course of time. And then endurance training, that could be walking, running, hiking, riding the bike, playing a sport, 15 to 30 minutes. Once again, if it's sport-based, that's going to go up a little bit more, or you're at the park and family day. And then a cool down. That's a big thing, is getting our kids, our youth, to down regulate a little bit, whether that's static stretching, working on a foam roller, or just doing some diaphragmatic breathing. Down regulating the system allows the opportunity for it to recover over the course of days after, where you get the most benefits from your workouts is not necessarily what you do today, but how you recover the next couple of days, because that's when the rebuilding process is occurring. So getting kids to even just lay on the ground for a minute as a family, let's just do nasal breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Almost, meditation focused Eastern kind of gear. That's a very simple way to down regulate the system that allows for the future steps to go. And that could be as low as 45 minutes right there. I just put one at, short one to the right of 10 minutes for warm up, strength, and all of a sudden it's 60 minutes in and out. Very simple. You can reduce that to 30. I think the overarching, picture here is get kids doing things consistently throughout the week, and to vary it from endurance, strength, flexibility, motor control, balancing, everything in a sense. So if there's an activity that hits all of that, phenomenal. And if they love it, even better. But start to give them options. You'll be surprised what ends up happening. And this is where I will have Nicole take over, where I talk about the power of integrating this, keeping it consistent. Because once again, we can give the tools, but if they only use it once every so often, you're really not going to optimize. So I'll stop sharing my screen and let her take over, and then we will answer questions at the end of it.
See. All right. Hi, everyone. So like Taylor said, thank you for having us. We're really excited to be able to present with you guys. So my portion of the presentation is called The Secret to Getting Motivated, Staying Motivated when it comes to exercise. And a little bit background about me. I am a speech therapist at a school for kids with learning differences. And through that, I also specialize in exercise behavior specialists, and I work with the students at the school and also with Taylor through PPI with how to help initiate the exercising and also keep exercising going, because that's often really difficult for not only our children, teens, but also just adults. So first I want to start with the myth behind feeling motivated. So feeling motivated is a feeling, meaning that it will come and go. So it's not something that we're always going to be able to count on. You're not always going to feel motivated. And it can be frustrating when some days you wake up and you're ready to go, you're ready to have a great workout, and other days, you're kind of dragging yourself out the door. And so that causes motivation to kind of come and go, and it interferes with a consistent exercise routine. And so we can't count on our motivation to keep us motivated and excited to exercise all the time. And so fortunately, we can trick ourselves into motivation even when it's not there. And there are two main points that I'm going to talk about today. First is your environment, and how that impacts your motivation or consistency in working out. And then also reinforcement, so what follows after your workout. So a little bit about just why do I work out? So one of the biggest questions to ask yourself is your why. Why are you working out? So just share some information about myself. So I work out because exercising helps me feel grounded. I have a really busy, hectic day of work all the time. And so starting my days with exercising just gives me some time to myself. It helps me feel strong, and I feel more independent that way. So for me, exercising is less about, getting super heavy weights going or meeting these really fast, running miles. And it's more about feeling good mentally and from a personal level. And because when you feel better about yourself, you want to be an active participant in your life, and you're able to be more independent with yourself. And so as you see here, I'm carrying Taylor, the farmer carries, and he's always encouraging me to do farmer carries throughout my workouts so that I can carry all these groceries home. And so just little things about that correlating to your daily activity. I've also met a lot of friends by being active. There's great ways to be social through meetup groups, team activities. The list is kind of endless when it comes to socializing and exercising. So just for yourself, just taking that moment to think of one or two reasons why you work out, and not because, maybe you feel you have to or someone's telling me to do it. Personal reasons for yourself. What can you gain by working out? What is your why? So how to get motivated, and when I say get motivated for this slide, I mean how do you initiate it? I recently read a research article that said just do 5 minutes, and they found that by telling yourself, okay, well, I'm going to just do it for 5 minutes, two things happened. Either you completely forgot after those 5 minutes that you would only do 5 minutes, and so you ended up doing a lot more. And then B, you ended up getting into the motion, finding that you were enjoying it. So just telling yourself, I'm just going to do 5 minutes and kind of seeing what happens and going, that's just a great way to initiate, because 5 minutes isn't very long in your mind, right? So by starting really small, you find that you end up doing a lot more. Again, focus on what you'll gain. So why are you doing it? And remind yourself that, and make it fun and make it sustainable for you. So for kids, making it fun, and I'll get more into this later, but we want to think about what's fun for a child or a teen. Maybe that's going to be really different from what you find fun. So you really want to individualize it and to find that motivation for the individual person. So some ways to just create your own type of motivation. Again, the first one is, what is your why? So I'd say that is one of the most important, because if you're, telling yourself that you're training for reasons of that other people are telling you to, or because you think it's good for you, that's going to be hard to continue on. You want to really find your reason why, and put it up somewhere where you're kind of always seeing that and always reminding yourself that. The second point is reinforce with something at the end. So you want to pair exercising with something pretty positive, and that's going to look different for everybody, and it doesn't have to be something big. So for example, I work out early in the mornings, and when I get home, I know I have breakfast and a cup of coffee and some quiet time for 20 minutes. That's always really reinforcing 5 days a week. I love it. That's my me time, and I'm excited to work out and get home and enjoy my time like that. For a kid, for kids that I often work with, it's being able to pick their own activity for the week. They have some free time. It might be having some extra time for TV, 10 extra minutes. Or maybe even, planning dinner for the night. So be creative, but by pairing exercising with also something that's kind of rewarding, reinforcing, you're creating a lot of positive associations with it. And so it's just more motivating naturally. You're gaining something out of it that you can actually see, because a lot of the exercising, a lot of the things that we gain from it, we can't always see right away. Put on some music or a show. So this one, create your own playlist if you are more motivated by listening to music that you really like. Create specific playlists for different types of days or moods or types of exercises. I have before put on a show, so you can have a show playing in the background and have a workout going at the same time. It kind of helps distract your brain for those days that might be more challenging to get your motivation, right? So we want to be flexible with what exercising looks like. And some days that means just kind of being in the room, in the living room, having something playing and doing some movement, and that counts. And so maybe one of those days, that's time for kind of a show and something that's lighter in activity. And your environment really matters. So you want to set yourself up for success before you go to workout. So that might mean, scheduling it in advance and putting out clothes in advance. And I'll get more into this a little bit later, but the environment that you are currently surrounding yourself in is going to have an impact on if you're feeling motivated or not to work out. And I think one of the biggest one is to do it with a partner, as a family, or as a friend. Having that accountability is really important, especially for children and teens. Doing it with someone, they're more likely to do it themselves. It's harder for them to really have that intrinsic desire, like, oh, I'm going to work out because it feels good for me. I know it's good for my future self. Children and teens really live in the here and the now. So we need to think about, how are we pairing it for right now? We're not going to easily get to that intrinsic motivation. So pairing it with somebody else to get that motivation, the music, the show, and the reinforcement at the end are ways to encourage our children and teens who don't have that intrinsic ability yet to exercise and to move. So to talk a little bit about barriers, because everyone experiences barriers, and it's something that really impacts our initiation and our maintenance of exercise. So I'm going to get into the two main barriers that occur for people. So the first one are physical barriers. So just some examples of things that I tell myself, I've heard others share. Exercising feels hard, or exercising causes physical pain or symptoms. Feeling maybe too sore, or you might be experiencing physical pain at that time. So maybe you woke up that morning and your joints really hurt and you're feeling really lethargic. It's going to be really hard to want to motivate yourself when you're feeling like that. And sometimes those feelings can last all week too. So what do we do when that happens? Well, some tips is number one, just remind yourself of, and your child and your teen that you may have, that your goal is to do what your body can do today. So as humans, we naturally fall into these mental traps where we try and compare ourselves to what we may have done last week. Last week is not today, and it's not this week. And so we have to just be really flexible. Well, okay, last week was great, acknowledge that. Today I'm not feeling so good. I maybe haven't been sleeping well, or the days are just hard, or I woke up just not feeling good. That's okay. You just need to focus on today, um, and remind yourself that just a little bit of movement has a really big impact in the long run. So this leads into my next point of going to the basics. So sometimes those 5-minute daily walks, the 5-minute meditation, just focusing on technique and stretching, those are actually really powerful and really important. So for example, when I'm working with my students and they're all feeling really tired, we just do stretching and we talk about the different parts of our body, and we bring a lot of intention into what we're doing. So we don't just say, okay, well, let's just keep going. We have some goals to meet. No, we want to make it enjoyable for them to work out and move. And so that means that we just need to tone it down a little bit. And there's a lot more we can gain. And that's perfectly okay, that it doesn't look the same as it may have before. So again, slowing it down. In general, your workouts, so taking deep breaths while you're working out, slow down your movements and have more time in between your sets. All of those are just little techniques. You don't have to or want to completely stop. In fact, when your body's feeling really heavy and really tired, doing these slower movement stretches, slow walks is often what your body's needing. It's needing some kind of like a reset of, okay, well, let me get back into my equilibrium. Let me get back to my walking and my stretching. So you're going to have physical barriers. You're not going to always feel great. Exercising might feel hard, and that's okay. You want to just kind of tone it down and meet where you're at right now. And we just have to remind ourselves that. Mental barriers. So an example is I can't do what my friend or my sister or whoever can do. I can't exercise. That's just not for me. Or I don't like exercising. When I hear I don't like exercising, I often think maybe we have a rigid thought of what exercising is, right? We kind of forget that dancing and cleaning and taking daily walks, that counts as exercising. It's not the mile runs that kids often associate exercising, or jumping jacks and planks. You can make it a little bit more interactive with your life. So, horseback riding, trying different sports, playing on the playground, like Taylor said, are other ways of exercising. So being flexible. Some other tips to get through the mental barriers: remind yourself of your goal. So maybe I want to play with my friends more. Maybe I do want to get stronger. Maybe I want to join a team in high school or a club team outside of the house. What is my goal when it comes to movement? And write that down. So again, just being intentional about yourself and realizing you have control over the way that you exercise and your body and your movement. This quote, comparison is the thief of joy. Of course, we naturally all compare ourselves to other things and people that we see, but we can only do what we can do, and that's enough. So again, just reminding ourselves, reminding our kids, you're doing the best that you can, you're doing great, and you'll get there. Wherever your goal is, it's going to look completely different than someone else, and with little daily practices, you'll get there. A really big tip for parents or people who are around kids a lot is model enjoying movement. So that's talking about it and also demonstrating it. So if I'm coming home from a long day and I'm saying, oh, I have to go run, or I had this really awful run, my kid or student is hearing that regularly. And so they're going to start to create that same inner thinking style of, oh, running's hard, I don't have time. Kids learn by imitation and by modeling the most. And so we do have to be mindful of, how do we talk about exercising? How do we talk about movement? Because that's exactly how kids learn, is by those models in their life. And then also last, make it fun. So Zoom, a friend, switch it up. YouTube has some really great options now for all these different kinds of exercises. Gotten really into horseback riding, and I recently found this whole YouTube curriculum about learning how to horseback ride. So just kind of engaging your child or student to constantly seeing positive associations and experiences with movement and exercising is a great way to get that encouragement and excitement. So just a few more strategies. Go in with a plan, so and schedule it in. So let's say we scheduled in, okay, we're gonna all do a workout, like as a family, or at 5 p.m. Make sure you have a plan with that, because then 5 p.m. is gonna roll around, and then everyone might be like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And then nothing might really come from it. So just make sure that you have some type of plan, even if it's just, 5-minute walk, 10-minute jog, whatever it is. Schedule it in. Research has shown that we are more likely to do something if we schedule it. So just the night before, even just look at the next day and say, okay, 3 o'clock, we won't be interrupted. You won't be interrupted. That's when we're going to do 20 minutes of movement. Using a timer is a great way to just maintain that motivation and make it feel like it's going a little bit faster. It's kind of like a mental trick. So set your timer, okay, for 20 minutes, we're doing, these things, and let the timer go down, and then it's done. Or it's a great way to kind of do interval training. So 20 seconds on, but then you get a break for 20 seconds. So you're kind of just constantly, keeping things interesting, playing with like a little bit mind game of like, okay, I can do something for 20 seconds. Okay, now I get a break, and kind of back and forth. For some students and teens, exercising can be really scary, especially if they feel that they can't keep up with their friends. So starting at home is definitely an okay, and maybe that's where the child needs to start at, and putting them in a sport might be too much of a next step. So if you're seeing that your child's maybe feeling that going out with friends and being active is a little bit more aversive than exciting, just start at home, get them comfortable moving. Again, YouTube videos, music, working out with them are all ways you just want them to feel comfortable with themselves. And then gradually start integrating, another friend, or maybe a sibling, or maybe move outside. So they're little baby steps. Sometimes we forget that we have to go through step A to B, C to get all the way out to, a sport event with a friend. Again, so with your environment, laying out your clothes, your water, thinking of your food, all that stuff the day before, you want to make it as easy as possible to exercise. So by already thinking of all these things before you are trying to exercise, it'll just be easier to just go into it. And it also, by incorporating the child into these kind of activities, you're showing them that, they have that autonomy over themselves and over their schedule, and it just gives them something to feel successful at. Make a playlist. I think this is maybe the third time I've said this one, because it's just really important. Children and teens just love music, and so incorporating some of that in to their own workouts is just kind of an easy way to get them excited, and also gives you something to share with them of learning new music. Accountability. So just some ways to keep that motivation and show that, hey, we're watching what you're doing as matters, and have them kind of monitor their own success, track the workouts. So this helps in two ways. A, you're scheduling it. And B, it's also going to be somewhere visual all the time. And then you can check off like, hey, I did this one, or, oh, I missed that one because of XYZ. Okay, but I got the next two. And you can put stickers, make it kind of fun and personable. And another way to maintain motivation is doing a group or family or team contingency plan. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can make it so that, say, there's, you know, 5 people in a family, and you're trying to motivate just maybe one of your children to keep working out and to even start working out. So if you say all 5 of us get 8 workouts this month, then we get to do some type of reinforcement, some type of event together. Another way to do it is, okay, whoever meets these 9 workouts gets this prize at the end. So it's either a whole group, so all of you have to do it, those 8 or 9 workouts or whatever you set for yourselves, or whoever gets to that number gets to do it. So the other person's kind of seeing like, oh, wait, my 2 siblings got it, or so-and-so got it and I didn't. Well, why? So it kind of creates that natural fun competition, and also team collaboration, and that you get to talk with each other and keep it an active dialogue. So it's not just something that's on them to exercise, it's something that is everyone's doing together. As saying accountability, posting it on social media. This is of course dependent on the age of the child, and also just preferences in general. But social media can be really great for creating that natural motivation of, great job, good job. And the CF community on social media is just amazing. And everyone's always constantly, telling each other, keep it up, keep going. So it is a really great place to maintain accountability. If you're not really finding it or not sure how to find it or create it at home, and you do have social media, use it to in your favor. Even sending emails to people that you might know who would be just sharing, good job, great job, proud of you. It can be something as small as that. If anything, just remind yourself, start small. Small changes are more sustainable, more enjoyable, and easier to do and easier to fit into the day. So if you have a child or a teen who is just not exercising at all, they're probably not going to do a 30-minute exercise, even twice a week, once a week. You want to start just 5 minutes and then give that praise or give that reinforcer that's really motivating to them, to slowly build. And then 2 weeks from now, go to 8 minutes. So make it really gradual. Not everything needs to be 100% effort. I know for myself, I try and give it all the time. And so that's not always sustainable. And I'm really learning that I need to kind of fluctuate with my body and how I'm feeling. So reminding ourselves that, some days you'll be able to go harder, other days just sitting around stretching and moving is a lot. And I just really like this quote. So may you make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. So a lot happens in our day-to-day that is out of our control. And so we just want to be aware of what are the things that I can do for myself. And movement and exercising are definitely things that I can do. And it'll just be exactly how it looks best for me and what is most motivating for me.